it's really important to be able to use that energy and build compassion, use that energy in imagination of, okay, so what would you like to see in the world?
Yeah.
And so when both these planets change into Aries, it's like you said, go time. And so you're able to use that creative force into something that's not fear-based, but is courageous, is from the heart. This year is a gigantic opportunity to wake up and just look at how much of your life has been on autopilot and how much has been unconscious and just really
following the program.
Like, like you're in the bumper car that's on the rail and bunk, 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 here more than ever. Is that, again, the personal accountability. And I mean accountability in being able to look at yourself, be honest with yourself, and be able to laugh at yourself. It's always when we take ourselves too seriously, that's where everybody gets into trouble.
We get our heads stuck up our rear.
Not a good view there. I don't recommend it.
Don't recommend.
That's not on my to-do list this year.
Hello and welcome to The Higher Vibe. I'm your host, Jean Roorda. Today I have back with me Laurie St. Clair, Master Evolutionary Astrologer and Spiritual Medium. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you, Jean. Good to be back. Always great to talk with you.
Okay, I love astrology talk. Super fun topic.
Me too.
And of course, as you know, I would imagine as anyone who is familiar with astrology has already recognized, we have a big year, 2026, that we're entering now. I recognize it's already late into January, but this is just a big year, so I didn't want to let it pass by without having the opportunity for you to talk about what is coming up.
Yeah, let it pass by. See, already you can tell it's moving quickly.
Right, it's already moving fast. It's like, oh, wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you get to share with us, those major themes that we're going to be experiencing this year, and just why is it a big deal? Why is this year such a big deal?
Ooh. Well, you and I were just chatting before we got on here, and you mentioned metamorphosis, and I was saying, what a perfect word, and that really is it. So much is shifting, so much is changing. And of course, as I say that, there's willingness to change and then unwillingness to change. So that's definitely going to be coming up.
It's a good reason to look at the astrology is to check in with ourselves. Like, are we willing to go with the flow of everything this year, or are we holding back and resisting?
Absolutely. Especially because the planet that deals mostly, specifically with transformation, metamorphosis, is Pluto, and it's in the sign of Aquarius, which it's a fixed sign, so it likes to hold on, but the nature of Aquarius is to break things up. It's to me, I think of it as the starburst that, breaks the box open.
Beautiful.
And so, exactly. Beautiful, but I can also say it kind of reminds me of...
It might be messy.
Yes, exactly.
Breaking out of some boxes is a theme, yeah?
Well, for sure. Breaking out of what's been limiting us, especially in our freedom. The sign of Aquarius has to do with individuation. It has to do with rebellion. It has to do with revelation. It has to do with evolution. With astrology, there's always, we'd say the higher side and maybe the kind of lower side, the shadow side, but we will see evidence of both,
all the spectrum.
Absolutely. There. Aquarius is also madness, genius, and there's always a fine line on that, interpretation, right?
Right.
And so specifically, one of the things that's a big deal with this 2026 is the planets that are changing signs. And we have Neptune, which So Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn, they all in 2025 dipped into the next signs that they're going into full on in 2026.
So we had a little preview.
We had a preview. And so to go back and kind of look at 2025, kind of what was being offered up, definitely it was a preview. And then they all retrograded back into the late degrees. Neptune retrograded back into Pisces, Saturn retrograded back into Pisces, and Uranus retrograded back into Taurus. And so they're all right now at the end degrees. And it's an interesting thing to me to come into the beginning of a year. And of course, it's just a calendar year. Yeah. Any day can be the beginning of anything.
Right.
And so, but with the energy of these planets at the last degrees, it really feels like, you know, we're finishing things up. We're taking the last looks at this kind of energy. And now we'll be moving into a whole new elemental phase because it's been really heavy on water and earth. Now it's going to be air and fire.
All right.
So just that.
That's why everyone says it's going to move fast too.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, it's in Chinese astrology, it's the year of the fire horse. I don't do Chinese astrology, but I know all of that's really present in social media.
Yeah.
And of course, all roads lead to Rome, or all roads lead to home, back to ourselves, hopefully.
Yeah.
But as well, even in numerology, the 2026 year is a 1. So it is about new. You've got Neptune and Saturn and Uranus all going into new signs, you know, going to 0. And especially Neptune and Saturn going into 0 Aries, which is the cardinal point. It's a very significant active point. Anything on those cardinal degrees, you know, cardinal are signs that take action in different ways.
And 0 degrees Aries is considered the beginning point of the whole
Zodiac.
Astrological wheel.
Right.
Is that true in all the different forms of astrology? Is that pretty standard? 0 degrees Aries is the beginning?
Well, at least in Western astrology,
so I was wondering
it is. For sure. You know, it's just absolutely that new slate. It's just, you know, go. It's fire. It's instinct. You know, that spark.
Let's
that
go.
and intuition. You know, that intuition in that instinct. Like that quick energy and the moving energy, that life spark. It's fire. That's about life.
So it's moving, really being aligned with your intuition so you can act on it right away rather than sitting in that where we just were, that Piscean, Neptunian, like, I don't know what I'm doing.
For sure.
This is like decisive and forward
Absolutely.
movement and clarity.
I've been looking at how, exactly, a lot of people have been overwhelmed with emotion. A lot of people have been feeling like they haven't had a lot of energy. And of course, you know, this is just collective energy. With each person's individual chart, it will affect people differently. Now, the thing about Pisces is it is mutable. It's more passive. And it just, you know, it's very much about feeling. One of the archetypes, Pisces, is the victim and the martyr. And so you have to, well, you don't have to, you're invited to look at...
You get to.
You get to, if you want. If you'd like to on this trip around the earth. Look at anywhere within your own life where you have been really feeling a victim, feeling helpless, getting into that powerlessness. And I would hope one of the benefits, I think, with that Saturn in Pisces has been shoring up our faith in things unseen. And I would hope, especially these next few months as Saturn finishes its journey in Pisces, because Saturn will go into Aries soon, February 13th.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
And Neptune pretty much
It's right here. And
yeah.
exactly. And also when a planet moves into another sign, it picks up different rulership. So it includes different planets. So it does make, more of a difference than people even realize. So Neptune has been in its own sign of Pisces. So it's very nice. It's used to being there. It likes it. Now when it moves into Aries, it's going to be ruled by the planet Mars. Now, obviously, it's a fire sign. It's very active, but it's the warrior. And Mars moves through signs much quicker. And so just looking at your own astrology or the astrology, day-to-day astrology, paying attention to what sign Mars is occupying is going to be important, because that's going to give you another emphasis, another flavor of what's being worked on, what's being brought in.
Love it. You said something earlier when we were chatting about the significance of where Neptune is moving into right now, with it moving into Aries, in terms of what was happening the last time we had Neptune move into Aries.
Yeah, Neptune has a pretty long orbit. So I think it's like 156 years. And the last time it went into Aries was in America, the time of the beginning of the Civil War. And
so 1861-ish. Yeah,
1861. And I found this kind of interesting because when I was looking at, and this would have to be a much longer conversation. I'm not going to be able to do this justice, but I was looking at that time period because to me, this really emphasizes freedom and claiming freedom. And I have been talking about Pluto going into Aquarius because it's been in Aquarius now for going on its third year-ish, and how it's about transforming the way that we look at any sign, which to me is about, can we transform our idea of freedom without violence? Can we get to that point where we can actually look at changing our consciousness instead of having to resort to violence, which obviously we're seeing a lot of all over the world, because people feel the energy. They really feel it coming in ahead of time. And the Aquarius energy, it just makes you feel restless. It makes you feel like I need more space, and I need more space to be me. And as you and I know, that space is within.
Right.
We have to create that space within our own consciousness for ourselves. And so with the Neptune going into Aries, that to me really talks about our own courage. One of the best things about Aries, it's about bravery, courage, and it's the heart, to stand up for your passion, to follow your heart. And it's not easy to follow in doing what you want when it's not the popular thing, when it's different than what other people think. And so this is really a time of exploration in our own personal freedom, and not only allowing ourselves space, but allowing other people space, and knowing each person is in a different, I was going to say time zone, but really, they're in a different place. They
their
have
own timeline.
They have a timeline. Exactly. They have their own time. They have completely different lessons to learn here on Earth. And sometimes the people that make us angry, because that can also be Aries, it's about the things that really push us to act. And, typically that can be anger. But when we're triggered, when we're upset about something, that gives us an opportunity to look at, how can I find compassion? How can I move through this anger into compassion? And that is the realm of Neptune. It's spirit. It's the metaphysical. It's the unconditional love. And it takes a lot of courage. It's not, you would think, but it is not the popular go-to.
It's not the popular or easy path oftentimes.
No, it's definitely, an eye for an eye, and, and when you offer, a thing of compassion, I remember, boy, I got really bad feedback, and it is also the thing about that Pisces, like looking at how you want to hold on to victimhood, hold on to suffering, because people become identified with it. And I had said, a woman was killed. She was a victim of a horrible crime and rape, and and all the things were flooding in about sending love to the family. And I thought, my God, this person that did this, he also needs prayers. He also needs love, and probably much more than the woman did. And it's an opportunity to look at that within ourselves. And not matching that energy of righteousness, of anger, and looking at our own fear. Because really, when we're not loving, we're coming from a place of fear.
Right. Yeah, that's hard to hear. I can see why you may have got some negative feedback, and yet for a lot of people, that makes total sense what you said. Of course, the person doing, like the victimizer, obviously in a space of total fear. We would never harm others if we weren't in total fear, total unconscious fear. So, of course, the person perpetrating such a violent act would need prayer too, would need our compassion.
Right.
And if someone is coming from fear and then hatred, blame, they're not going to want to hear that. He's the bad guy.
Right.
Don't send him any love.
Absolutely.
But love needs to go where it's needed the most. Which is,
What is that?
No, obviously, they both need love and compassion, but I can see where that would be hard, difficult to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing about this year. Our shadow, everybody's shadow side is really in their face. And that's kind of the thing about Aries, because Aries usually can be very confrontational and usually very honest. That's another thing. Things will be coming out.
And righteous? I know you pointed out the righteousness. Would you say that's also a quality?
Well, especially because the Saturn will be going into Aries. And Saturn, it represents the archetype of the law, the judge. And going into Aries, I really got the feeling when I was looking at all of these planets going into these signs of almost, when they had the religious crusades, that kind of figure of just that burning, because Neptune is spiritualism, religion in a way, and as well Jupiter, which rules more like philosophy of life, organized religion. That will also be shifting this year from Cancer into Leo, another fire sign.
Yes.
So we are burning, baby.
We're burning. So some of that burning could look like religious fervor or spiritual righteousness.
Absolutely.
And so I love this hello to bringing in the compassion to balance that out. And I was also looking at that tendency for maybe that anger, that, Mars and Aries type of anger, to the potential for that to be met and transformed into inspiration. Like maybe the higher quality of Aries is that inspiration, like, let's go. Right? So not that the anger is bad or wrong, but when that comes up, really look at it, see what that anger is about, and let it be a transforming fire to move you into that higher frequency of inspiration.
I so love that you said that. Exactly. Because that is one of the beautiful things about fire signs. It's light. And it illuminates, and that is inspiration. Each sign has a little saying, and for Aries, it's I am. And so that is really a good thing to be looking at this year. I am. Okay, so what are you? What are you? I am this, I am that, or just I am. And looking at that ability to look at our shadow side and to face it and be honest with ourselves. because again, with this light, things being, illuminated, and to be inspired to take action to bring more of our own spirit to whatever we're doing, and that connection to spirit, that connection to God, whatever you deem it to be. I liken it to just pure love. And that, often when we talk about love, we can talk about fire, a fiery energy, and also purification, baptism by fire. Right? And looking at it that way of, there's that saying about if you want to go to war, you have to look at the war that you're having within yourself.
Yes.
Because if you didn't have it inside you, you wouldn't be trying to manifest it outside of you. Right. And I really think that this year has the huge opportunity for people to really shift what they perceive as lacking into a sense of going within and finding that they're not lacking anything.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Transforming that perception of lack into really recognizing that you have within the abundance we have.
Right. And what a freedom that is. And especially, I will say, Pluto and Aquarius, it can bring up chaos, because whatever sign it goes into, like I said, it gives us the opportunity to transform those things. And so very often when it first goes into a sign, all the stuff comes up. And so, we've been
seeing that.
For sure. And so often you have to lose something to really see the value. And when we get shaken up, when we have crisis, it reorients us. It helps us if we can let go of the trauma, if we can let go of the PTSD. And, I mean, because Pluto is really about resourcefulness. And no matter what the experience, we can gain an education, we can gain wisdom. And that just in itself is where compassion really starts to build within ourselves, is if we can, know that, hey, when we're here on Earth, nobody goes unscathed. There's no like this person has the perfect life. You may think so, or people like to make it look that way, especially in the day and age.
We all have our
AI.
Yeah.
Right.
Gosh, yeah. We all have our challenges and our lessons to learn, and those can show up differently for different people, but I love it. Nobody gets out of here.
Right. And and it is why we're here, to look at each moment is an opportunity, because there's plenty to look at. There's plenty to be distracted by, there's plenty to be divided by.
Especially now.
Oh my gosh, what a time to be alive. We're just being able to pause, to breathe. I mean, I sometimes I hate that, just breathe. But you know what? This year, let me tell you,
it's important
because
it sounds like a cliche, but it's like super basic and important.
Even the breath of life, doing, I know that's a yogic practice. Thank you. Practice, and also fire is very creative, and so just know things are going to be manifesting really quickly. So if you're keeping your mind in fear, if you're keeping your focus on the chaos and becoming it, you're just adding the fuel to the fire. It's one thing if you can remain neutral, but keep that in mind. What fire are you building on? So Pluto has been in Aquarius, or is in Aquarius, and the ruler is the planet Uranus. It's been in Taurus, and that is going to be moving into Gemini for the next 7 years. It moves into Gemini April 20th, and it had been in Gemini last summer for a bit, but retrograded back.
We got a little preview. Yeah, we talked about that at the previous podcast with you and I. We talked a little bit about what Uranus and Gemini would look like. So, yeah, I'd love to hear more about that because that sounds very interesting.
And especially because that Uranus and Gemini will be ruling the Pluto in Aquarius. And so they're both air signs. And that's also about things moving quick. Like Uranus is the planet of lightning, it's epiphanies, and when it goes into Gemini, that speeds things up. Like Taurus is the slowest of the slow. And so all of a sudden, it's going to be like that.
All of a sudden, it's going to move.
So these things that we've been already witnessing with AI and technology, it's just going to be off the chart. Now, as well, I would say telepathy, that the psychic stuff, that's going to be amped up. I feel like so many people are already talking about that, people that don't normally recognize those types of things. As well, one of the things I like to talk about with Gemini siblings, but as well, your neighbor, okay? And so to me, looking at the way that you connect with your neighbor, looking at the way that you connect with seeing everybody. I want to, what am I channeling Mr. Rogers here? Is bringing in, because the planet Uranus and sign of Aquarius is also about one of the best uses is humanitarianism. It's for the people.
Love it.
And so as well, I have seen Uranus and Gemini in war situations. And so again, it's about rethinking things. Gemini is about our perceptions, the way that we communicate, the way that we talk. And so looking at any ways that we can within ourselves revolutionize, open up to new ways of thinking, open up to connecting in with people that we just normally wouldn't, and trying to bridge that gap in humanity and know that there's always a common thread and we're always enriched by learning something new.
Yeah, that's back to that compassion piece.
Again.
Like shifting from, instead of seeing others through a lens of judgment as...
Be afraid.
Or, be very afraid. They must be the enemy. If we see others through that lens of compassion and lovingness, then we can see our neighbor as someone to connect with rather than keep at a distance.
Yeah.
Right? Because when we're afraid, we've got to protect ourselves and keep everyone away. And then there's not an opportunity to learn from each other and collaborate and work together and create.
Exactly. And obviously, you and I know if you're not laughing, you're not learning, right? I mean, when you're in fear, if you think about just that energetic feeling of being afraid, it's really isolating. It really encapsulates. So to me, the Saturn in Aries is about burning down those boundaries. Burning down those walls and embracing, connecting, building those bridges. One of the things about Gemini as well is curiosity. Gemini is childlike. It's curious. It asks why. Yeah. It's that kid that's like, why? Oh my God. And so definitely for everybody, if you can be asking questions. To me, this year is like waking up from a deep slumber and looking around and going, oh my God, wow. And and sometimes that has to happen. And obviously, with lessons in life, it's always like, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? And the lessons
We get many reminders and opportunities.
This year is a gigantic opportunity to wake up and just look at how much of your life has been on autopilot and how much has been unconscious and just really
following the program.
Like, like you're in the bumper car that's on the rail and bunk, 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 at Disneyland. And it's like,
just going with the program.
And it's like, no, you're going to get your own car, but you got to pay attention. And as well, I haven't even talked about accountability. And that is a big thing this year, is personal accountability. This is one of the things about Aries is it's personal. It's I, whereas Libra, the opposite, is we. And so when Saturn goes into Aries, it's about your own personal accountability. Now, Saturn's been going through Pisces, and as we've seen, there's a lot of looking at people in positions of leadership that are not really being the epitome,
in integrity.
Being in integrity, in in great, and so when that Saturn goes into Aries, it's about, okay, well, what am I doing in my own life? How am I in integrity? How am I out of integrity? How honest am I with myself? How honest am I with others? What can I do? And no matter what, I feel like it's always a thing about, and I probably talked about this before, is in astrology, you're always looking at, no matter what the sign is, you have to look at the opposite sign, because we live in the world of duality. In spirit, we're undivided. We come to earth, we're divided. And I love that the astrology wheel shows us the opposite. And no matter what, we always have to come to a point in between to balance. And to me, that's about being able to be neutral. And so when the Saturn's in Aries, yes, you do need to watch being too overly me focused. But it's important for everyone to look at their own accountability and not just running over everybody else, which can be happening.
So we can use it as an opportunity to get honest with ourselves, accountable with ourselves, but not like self-absorbed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Self-aware. That would be excellent. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Yes. And to be inspired by it instead of so much, like I said, the fear thing, because both Saturn and Neptune and Pluto deal with different types of fear. But when it has to do with Pisces, it can just be that nebulous, like, not knowing. And so there's that
lots of subconscious fear.
Things aren't clear.
Unrecognized.
And so that's why I was talking about how I feel it's really important to be able to use that energy and build compassion, use that energy in imagination of, okay, so what would you like to see in the world? And so when both these planets change into Aries, it's like you said, go time. And so you're able to use that creative force into something that's not fear-based, but is courageous, is from the heart.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. So we're going to see that both, I'm thinking both personally, we're each going to have our own come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, lots of them.
If we take this opportunity to get really honest with ourselves, really aligned with our own integrity, aligning with compassion and love rather than fear, we'll each have those opportunities. And then, but also collectively, it sounds like collectively there's some big changes that are just going to happen. I mean, if we have all these shifts into Aries happening and just the collective astrological movement and fire and air energy, what does that look like for maybe global systems and certain countries?
I always focus on the personal astrology because we make the difference. And I really feel that this year is a year when people can really understand the power of the people. I'm hearing John Lennon, power to the people, right on. And not about...
That's very Pluto in Aquarius.
Absolutely,
power to
very
the people.
Pluto in Aquarius. And I was thinking about the 60s, and although Pluto wasn't in Aquarius, it was in Virgo, but a lot of the 60s, Pluto and Uranus were together. They were conjunct. They were like Siamese twins. And so that is like having Pluto and Aquarius. And so there was a lot of civil unrest, as we know, the civil rights, all of that stuff was coming up. And I was looking back as well at, like the Civil War time, and just this theme, Chiron, the wounded healer, the asteroid that really represents that archetype of the wounded healer being in Aries. And in the US chart, I'm using the Sibley chart for any astrologers listening, and it wouldn't matter if it was a Sibley chart or not, but at the time of our Declaration of Independence, our birth chart, Chiron was in Aries. We are now going through another time of Chiron being in Aries, and we've just are having our Chiron return for the United States. And really that wound has to do with just your basic right to exist. Your wound around, I have a right to life. I have a right to take up space. I have a right to be here and be alive. And
that American saying, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking about that saying the other day, and I was thinking, even that saying, because often, always with astrology, cycles come back around, but they're never exactly the same, because we're never the same. We get opportunities to do it over, to do it over, to do it better, to do it more enlightened, to do it this, to do it that. And that pursuit of happiness just built in there, I think that people can get hung up on, I have to pursue happiness. It's outside of me.
Pursuing.
I'm chasing
out
it,
there.
And it makes that competition. I better get it before that person does. It's limited. It's not within me.
Right. And it's not in here. You don't already have it. You got to do something to make it happen.
Exactly. And so even looking at that, like that's a Uranus and Gemini thing to do, is like, oh, wait a minute. Let me look at that thing that's always been said.
What's the next evolution of that?
And like, do I have that? Like, looking at these things that we always hear and go, wait, does that still work for me? I mean, we update our phones, we update our computers, we update these operating systems all the time, right? But do we update the way that we perceive?
It's running our mind.
Exactly. And so that's a type of freedom, right? Is when we can release ourselves from these limited ways of thinking, these limited things we've been told. And so, there's going to be changes in systems. There's going to be, I got to say, when Pluto's in Aquarius, things change. And often it can be chaotic. It can be very abrupt. And so that's why the thing of each of us waking up and being able to have more objectivity, instead of one running into blame, this person did that, or this always cracks me up, I would never, or who would do that?
That's the righteousness.
And it's like, really? And how people always want to look at somebody, and it's like, no, we all have the places we fall down. We all, if we're not willing to set ourselves free by looking at our shadow, our resistance. And it's funny because a lot of people keep talking about resistance, and in a way I can understand that, because it's like, okay, I don't want that. But when we get into resistance, we just amplify that energy. We're
just create more of what we're resisting.
What is that? When you hate something, you chain yourself to it. And this is all about breaking free. And so it's about not going down.
And being creative. That inspiration, like coming back to that higher vibe of Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries. It's like inspiration, as well as you said, Jupiter moving into Leo. That's so much inspiration. That's so much expansion. That's like, let's go again. And the creativity and getting out of the ruts. Like I feel like that rut of reactionism, reacting to things we don't like, resisting the things we don't like, rather than this is an opportunity to look at what I would like to create, to get inspired, and to go out there and create, rather than continuing this old game of fighting against what we don't want.
Right.
I think that this new technology that's coming online super fast, this kind of AI takeover and potentially being like on a government level, like high stakes surveillance and digital IDs and all of that, that's not something that you can fight.
Right.
That's just create something different. That's the only, if you don't like that system, great. You're not going to stop it by fighting against it, though. That's going to be a very impossible thing to fight. It's just, what would you like instead?
Right.
And create that. That the only way to be free is to create a different system.
Exactly. And to, where are you putting your action? I love these monks walking for peace. Like, to me, that is absolutely that Neptune and that Saturn in Aries. They are taking action. They are physically moving, and it's a walking meditation. And so many,
and just sharing so much love along the way, impacting so many people.
And it's funny because Aries, it does not usually get known for this, but Aries is very romantic. It is very, it can be very romantic. And the thing about these monks walking for peace, they are taking action. They're doing something out in the world. They're making their presence known. They're not hurting anybody. And so to me, that is such a great example of using that energy and in a way to touch people, to inspire people. And we can inspire people just by showing up every day, like literally, and sometimes for people, especially in these massively changing times, just getting up, getting dressed, or getting up, taking the shower, getting dressed, it takes courage, and then if you can have conversations and connect in with people in situations where you can, one, support each other, encourage, inspire, instead of be in competition, instead of be looking at what's not working. Well, what is working? And shift the energy, because the energy is so powerful. And I know I probably said it before, but we have scientific studies, if you're scientific, that people meditating together lower the crime rate in cities. And if people can just get over themselves to be loving and to connect and accept people where they're at and focus that energy on peace, on love, on creative self-expression, music, art, any of those things.
I was just going to say, to really value your vibration. That's what I was looking at when you mentioned how meditation shifts the vibration of the area around you, and the studies that show that crime decreases in places where there's more people meditating. What that points to is just to value your vibration, to value meditation. It might look like you're not doing anything.
But you are. Exactly.
Right. But it's that everything that we're doing on the outside comes from where we're vibrating, where we're being the inside. So it's so important to value your vibration, to tend to that, whether it's through meditation, whatever practice you have, and to let that be the baseline that you're creating from, and to value that, to recognize the importance of that. Just like with the monks, they're going out there and walking. The reason it's so impactful, it's not that just walking across the country or from Texas to DC is impactful. Look at where they're vibrating out on the inside. That's the impact, that they're together in this community of lovingness, of peace, of compassion, of just sharing that peacefulness and lovingness. And as they move through all the communities they moved through, so many hearts and lives were touched. I saw so many really touching videos of people just weeping, because not a lot of people come into contact with somebody that's exuding that much lovingness and peacefulness, and just the presence of peace is so unusual to so many people. Really embodied peace, just total self-love and self-acceptance, and acceptance and peace with whatever's happening in the world. That's so impactful. And I love that we have the opportunity now with all the astrological forecast to look at where we're not at peace and to be inspired to shift that
Yeah,
from
to have the
within.
courage to do it. Because
To courage. Yeah.
you know, in certain cultures, there's so much more room for people to do that. In the Western world here, to decide, oh, I want to go be a monk, you know, you'd be questioned by everybody in your family, right? And, yeah.
It's not normal here, yeah.
Again, questioning what is normal. And as well, I love that you talked about valuing your vibration, because one of the things with when Uranus goes through Taurus, Taurus is about our self-esteem, it's about our value system, but what it does, because you know, Uranus is like the earthquake, it is the earthquake planet, you know, it breaks things up.
It shakes it up.
And so what it does is a lot of the stuff about money, you know, Taurus is about the way that we support ourselves. And there's been so much just shakeups in that. And then you have to look at, oh, well, what do I really value? You know, if everything goes away, you know, which everything will go away. When we pass over, they're not going to say, oh, you know, what did you have? It's so much more about the vibration that you cultivate. When you walked into a room, were people drawn to you because you have love inside? Or were you angry? You know, what were you contributing in that way? And that has a lot to do with, you know, where we're placing our values. I'm not saying we shouldn't value money, but money is an energy. And when we overemphasize the material things, we definitely get lessons. So
I love it. This isn't a game in how many things you can accumulate.
You know, and there's nothing bad about that. It's just not getting too caught up in that.
Not the purpose.
Exactly. And so we really are up for a year of practicing non-reactiveness, practicing neutrality, practicing our amusement for sure, practicing checking in with our heart. You know, you mentioned, you know, Jesus, and it's like, yes, what would Jesus do? You know, what would Jesus do? You know, or
what would
whatever.
Jesus do?
You know, I think Jesus is a great example of, and really looking at, you know, are your actions, if somebody was saying, what would Laurie do? Would it be a good thing? You know?
Yeah.
And so,
what would they say about that? Yeah.
You know,
that's great. It sounds like too, it's a really introspection about what am I valuing. It looks like a lot of the shifts this year have to do with a shift in value or a shift in the awareness of what we've been placing our value in and what we can.
That Uranus moving into Gemini after it's been in Taurus is about now creating, now speaking our truth about, you know, what we've gone through and what we've kind of been looking at, you know, personally and collectively in our own value systems and just self-worth and, like you said, that honoring your own vibration and to be able to voice and to speak about these things because it's Gemini. It's about communication.
What about community? To me, and I don't know the astrological reason for this, and maybe there isn't one, but I'm also looking at this shift towards people valuing community more and building community more. And especially, as you mentioned, people more aware of the other and the neighbor and relationships with others. To me, that points to valuing and creating community.
And Pluto and Aquarius, because Aquarius is about groups, you know, the humanitarian thing. It can also be kind of antisocial. Yeah. And so you have to watch that. And the biggest key to me would be being able to create communities that have enough space for people to just be who they are as they are instead of you have to fit into this box.
Control.
You know, and that really is the beauty of allowing a person to have their own path, do their own thing. Because, I mean, honestly, nobody wants to be controlled, right?
Yeah. Maybe an opportunity to create, you know, when you mentioned the 60s and what was going on during that time period, there was a lot of inception of communes, of that sort of communal living happened. But it was at that lower vibration of control. Like, this community exists because we're all doing this. We're all thinking the same way, or we're all kind of being sort of similar the same way, having agreements that are very strict or aligned in certain ways. Whereas now I'm looking at the higher evolution of the community minded, where it's about freedom. Not the freedom to impose your will or harm others, but the freedom to be yourself and be able to be with others while being yourself.
Absolutely. And again, it goes to that point of, freedom is always created within. I love that quote by Nelson Mandela when he said, when he talks about, if I did not forgive those people that jailed me after I walked out of that cell, I would have never been free. And I'm paraphrasing it, but really, as our teacher, Michael Tamura, would always say, freedom is really forgiveness. And that is, I think, one of the major things to remember. The forgiveness of ourselves, the forgiveness of others. And of course, as we do that, we create the space. When we forgive, we create that space for ourselves, and we create that space for others to be perfectly imperfect. We're all a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
And to stay at that, the highest vibration we can. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but just to remember to just keep focusing, just keep reorienting, recalculating, redirect, exactly. And we can have community now through the internet, through, in different ways than we were able to before.
Yeah, but I was looking at that communities as that, what are we creating rather than fighting against the systems we don't like or want? What are we creating instead, right? To put all that fire and that passion into creating something new and different that is aligned with our values. And that can be with creating communities, hopefully in-person types of communities too, as I think the internet is going to be more of a means of control rather than freedom.
No, true.
But just because it's very AI-driven and algorithms and such. But that freedom through community and just how much happiness, when we get back to the higher vibe of the pursuit of happiness, rather than it having to be coming from out there, when we recognize the joy within, we naturally want to share that. We naturally want to connect with others and create community. And then that just brings happiness to all of us because we are interdependent, right? We don't exist in isolation. Although I love that you pointed out that was like the shadow side a little bit to the Aquarius energy.
Be,
the collective, and then the shadow is that isolationism.
And also elitism. Thinking, you're smarter than somebody else, thinking you're better. That can...
I'm better than you.
No, you just,
that competition.
It's just different, especially the difference that, really honoring each difference, the differences in people. And like, when you go into a garden, being able to see different flowers, trees, things that...
We want that biodiversity.
Absolutely. That's what makes the world so rich.
I love that example. Humanity can be a beautiful garden, and to really honor and recognize the differences, and to allow the differences to be, rather than sparking fear or competition, the differences can be a source of inspiration and lovingness and resource that we all get to come together and share our differences as resources.
And I love that you use the word allow, because I think, this really looks at people's insecurities and vulnerabilities. Is often when people get into competition or they don't, quote unquote, like something, it's, a fear reaction. And again, if we can mine that inner courage, really the courage to be ourselves in a world where
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I know it's another saying, another quote about it's an active revolution, to love yourself in a world that
Yeah.
totally discourages it.
Yeah. The world really consciously or subconsciously gives us a lot of
Well,
messages to hate
yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, you're not enough.
You're not enough.
The pursuit of happiness.
That's
Just look within, and
Yeah.
and that's the thing. You know what?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Right.
It's so great because it's so true. Look at how we interact with people. When we're feeling good, when when we've slept, when we've ate well, when we're taking care of ourselves, we love people. We're happy. We say hello,
Right.
But when we haven't, we're like, oh, they're this, or they're looking at me,
Grumpy.
or they said,
Right. Really
Yeah,
all starts
absolutely.
from within.
And
Covering
that's
those
about
basics.
that
Love it.
Aries energy and bringing it in.
I love it. Yeah, I love all the quotes that have touched upon the themes of the year. The one that came to mind when you were speaking about forgiveness, and I love that you mentioned Nelson Mandela. That was a great hello. The quote that came to my mind was, fear binds the world, forgiveness sets it
love it.
free.
Yeah.
And that's going to be
Yeah.
a great theme for this year because we have the choice in every moment. If we're going to go into fear, things are going to
Right.
get really stuck and
Right.
ugly really fast because everything's moving so fast. And yet when we stay in that mindset of forgiveness, the doors will open, the
Yes.
space opens. I love that you address that forgiveness is
Yeah.
really opening space, right? It's letting all of that tightness and that holding
Yeah.
on, letting it all go. There's space. And then all this fiery energy coming in
Yeah.
has space to create and
Exactly.
move us towards
Because the
next best
energy,
thing.
astrologically, the energy is always there. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to be at its mercy?
Yeah.
Or are you going to use it to the best of your ability? That's
Yeah.
the beauty of it.
Yeah. It's like ingredients to work
Exactly.
with, right?
We're on the cooking show. We're on the baking show. This is what you've got this year.
Yeah.
Yes, 2026
ingredients,
baking
yeah.
show is this. What are you going to do? Exactly.
Yes, it's still up to
Right.
you and your creativity and
Yeah.
your inspiration.
Definitely.
Make the most
and
of it.
particularly
Make
this
a-
year more than ever.
Yeah.
Is that, again, the
About-
personal accountability. And I mean accountability in being able to look at yourself, be honest with yourself, and be able to laugh at yourself, It's always when we take ourselves too seriously, that's where everybody gets into trouble.
Yeah, we get our heads stuck
And
up our
it's
rear.
not a good view there. I don't recommend it.
Don't recommend.
That's not on my to-do list this year.
It's so good to be reminded so that
Absolutely.
we can recognize when
Yeah,
that's
and
what's
I
happening.
love what you mentioned about hopefully community, being in person and being able to connect in that way. And I really feel like so many people are really wanting that, and
Yeah.
hopefully people start being able to look at what they want to build instead of focusing on what's not working, but looking at, okay, well, again, like you were saying, what do I want? There's so much creative energy, so much can happen, so much can be created. I mean, literally, it's like sizzling with, absolutely.
instant this year.
Very
Yeah.
alchemical this
Yeah.
year.
So all of these like impulses to have people be more well treated. Like I think a lot of the current conflict in the US has to do with people want to see others being treated well and loved. And so to just do that, to just love people, right? Rather than look for ways to fight against the bullies. Just go out there and
absolutely.
love people.
And love yourself, because the people out there instigating those things, the people out there instigating the violence and the just in going on, those again are people that are not in a place of self-forgiveness. They're not in a place of self-acceptance, if that's what they're needing to do, and also following a program. And so when we get into fear, it's not like we should be burying our head and saying, okay, this isn't happening. It's the not matching that energy. Like you said, okay, well, how am I going to create peace? How am I going to create love? Where have I just been so engrossed in my own dream world, diversion, that I haven't been paying attention to what is happening to somebody else? And what can I do about it? How can I make a difference? I want to see really quickly if I can bring up this quote. It's one of my favorites by William Blake.
Okay.
And it's really short, but I really thought with these aspects in this year, it really made me think of this quote. Is pretty much sums it up. I sought my God, and my God I could not see. I sought my soul, and my soul eluded me. I sought my brother, and I found all three.
Oh, that is a perfect quote.
So,
love it. That is a quote for community. Loving thy neighbor.
As thyself.
And coming together.
The golden rule. If we could just all stick to the golden rule.
Yeah.
I mean,
an oldie but a goodie.
We wouldn't have to have these talks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We probably wouldn't even have to incarnate.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Exactly.
Golden rule. Yeah. I love that. May we all apply the golden rule to everything happening.
Do
in
unto
our lives.
others, golden rule.
Yes.
Not he who has the gold rules.
That's a whole different vibe.
Absolutely.
That's been the game on the planet. Now we're changing that to sharing.
Yeah. Exactly.
He who has the gold gets to share with everyone.
Right.
And then everyone has the gold. Yeah. Thank you so much for chatting with me today, Laurie, about this year's upcoming astrological forecast, all the wonderful ingredients we have to work with.
And
in our creative making of the year, we have some very exciting ingredients coming up.
Amen, sister.
And thank you for sharing that William Blake quote. That's
Thank
beautiful.
You, Jean. It's just been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and see what we can cook up.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, on The Higher Vibe today. We'll see you next time. Hello. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Share this with friends. Really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next time.